his work, his research, his insight, and more importantly, his farsightedness. He called out forces that were acting against Bharat long before. He's come out now again, and he's really, quite literally, poking the bear at various levels. And we'll try and challenge him as to why he is doing so in Snakes in the Ganga, Breaking India 2.0. Rajiv Malhotra ji, author, researcher, and also founder of Infinity Foundation. Such a pleasure to speak with you.
The pleasure is mine. Namaste to everybody.
Rajiv ji, I want to ask you, it looks quite thick, it's about 2,25,000 words, and you have tried to chase who's championing the discourse. So if it was following the money in Breaking India 1, Breaking India 2.0 seems to be focused on the discourse. So let's start from there.
So first of all, I want people not to be scared of the size, because the 22 chapters are all self-contained, independent. You can read any chapter in any sequence. You don't have to read the book cover to cover. If you read the introduction, 30-40 pages, you get a total map of the book, and then you can dive deeper. If you want to know more about how China is playing a role, well, you go to a chapter. If you want to know more about how Harvard is jealous of IITs and attacking IIT meritocracy, because there's more IITians who are Silicon Valley CEOs than Harvard people, then you go to a particular chapter. So like that, each chapter is an aspect of this whole ecosystem that we are exposing, and you can go to as many as you want. So that's to make sure people are not thinking, you know, if I buy this book, I have to read so many pages. You can read a few pages and you'll know a lot. So now you're absolutely right. In the first Breaking India book, which is about a dozen years old, we followed the money and saw how money comes into India, because you know the money was important because they were trying to influence poor people, villagers. So now we have to look at the discourse which is poisoning India. We know people know that there were CA riots and Kashmir 370 and farmers and whatnot, and they know that the press, Washington Post, BBC, New York Times, all of these, the Wall Street Journal, etc., were hostile to India in ways that is so unfair. But what they haven't figured out, most people in India hadn't figured out until we've come up with this thesis, is where is it coming from? After all, an individual journalist here and there is not going to do so much research and try to target India. Somebody is training them. So tracking where the discourse is coming from, the kind of like a supply chain. You know, we are used to supply chain. There is a knowledge supply chain,
correct,
information supply chain. We came up with the conclusion that this poison, the knowledge, this information being poison, being transmitted through snakes, that's the metaphor, snakes carrying this poison to bite and spread the poison, are coming from a nest of snakes. And that nest of snakes, while there are many nests, the biggest is Harvard University. So that's basically the discovery that Harvard University has developed a lot of poison, and we can discuss what are the theories that constitute this poison and spread this poison on their behalf in India.
So when you say Harvard, you are sticking your neck out and you're going after what is perceived to be the most prestigious university in the world.
Yes.
But you're not looking at it from the realm of science and technology, you're looking at it from the social parts of it, so liberal arts, humanities, etc.
Yes.
That's where you believe the discourse is being championed.
Yeah.
Now, is this your point of view, or is this where the research led you to?
No, this is where the research leads. So Harvard we respect for its science, technology, engineering, you know, medicine, those kind of things. It's wonderful. The Chinese have actually sent their students to study those subjects. They don't send students to study human rights, feminism or LGBTQ and minorityism and bring it back and have create Gadar. Chinese won't do that. The Chinese are very strategic in what they want to be taught in Harvard. So when they fund, which they do, they fund particular kinds of knowledge. They don't want Harvard to talk about Chinese history and Chinese society and what's going on in the politics or democracy. They don't want them to talk about, nor do they want their students to study all that. But India being very open, both the funding is of all sorts and the students who go there are of all kinds. So Harvard has become a magnet attracting people who are anti-India, who we call Breaking India forces, Hindu-phobic. They have championed conferences like dismantling Hindutva. They've championed a whole lot of discourse on why India's democracy is not genuine or it's falling apart, and why they use words like fascism and, you know, saffron, right-wing extremism, and this Hindu extremists are on par with Islamic terrorists. So all this sort of stuff that you see in the Indian newspapers, you'll find that it starts in Harvard, but it doesn't stay in Harvard. And many of the people who are knowledge workers in this kind of economy are Indians. So it's not like white Goras are doing this and we are just, it's not like the British were doing it. Actually, they have found a lot of Indians for sale who want to, for the sake of money, or they'll get a free ticket, or they'll become prestigious, or their careers will be boosted, whatever the reason may be, or it could be Indian politics. There are people who are in the Indian political scene who feel that they cannot fight on merit within India, and they need to be on the coattails of Harvard. They need to go there and give them all the dirty linen on India, and in exchange Harvard will patronize them, boost their ego, boost their brand value, and they'll come back and they'll be empowered. So I would say a large part of the issue and the problem lies with Indians themselves.
So Indian money, Indian minds, Harvard is using that to turn them against India itself.
Yes.
My question is, why India?
So India is a soft target. This will not work in China. In fact, China has shut down many academic collaborations with Stanford and Harvard and various places, which had to do with the humanities and social sciences, because they realized that bringing in wokeism and critical race theory was not what they wanted. So that's a soft target. India is a soft target, China is not. The Islamic countries don't want it. The Islamic countries fund, Arabs fund, all kinds of Islamic countries fund, but they also fund very targeted. It's very interesting, one of the neighbors of Harvard is MIT, and you expect that MIT is about engineering, but the Arabs have funded something called JPAL. J is the name of a family, Arab family, and PAL is Poverty Action Lab. And so this is to reduce poverty in the world, and they picked India. So now imagine Harvard getting Arab money to target the reduction of poverty in India, but they haven't helped one single poor person. It's all about building a discourse of the atrocities against poor people, against minorities, against Dalits and so on. So Harvard is a place where you can, if you have enough money, and you have enough strategy and cunning and negotiating skills, you can turn it into a place where they'll do all this churning for you. They'll develop some discourse for you, and then they'll distribute it.
There are a few terms that you mentioned which I would like you to give us some clarity on. You mentioned critical race theory, and you said wokeism. Now, how are they connected, and what's the genesis of critical race theory? Is it a borrowing from a left concept or Marxism, or is it perhaps a corrupted version? Can you explain?
Yes, this is a very good. Chapter 1 is called the Americanization of Marxism.
Yeah.
Now that's a provocative term, because people will say, what Americanization? Marxism nothing to do with America. America is as anti-Marxist as possible. Marxism in its original form was class warfare, economic class, not races, and not jati or caste, and not religion. It was economic. So all the proletariats and all the bourgeois are the classes. The proletariat should overthrow the bourgeois because they own the means of production. Yeah. So that had nothing to do with one religion fighting another or one race fighting another. In fact, Marx was very clear. He wanted to unify all the people who were the poor, who had no access, who didn't own any means of production.
So the haves and the have-nots.
The haves and the have-nots. That's it. So what happened is, in the middle of the 20th century, during World War II, Marxism 2.0 got created, because what happened is, while in the Russian Revolution, it was a true Marxist revolution. The peasants overthrew. But in the case of Germany, when they had a depression, economic depression, there was no Marxist revolution. And it bewildered the Marxists as to why is it that Germany didn't have the same revolution while they had the same economic conditions. And so they came up with Marxism 2.0 to explain the rise of the Nazis. So it changed the whole spin on that. Then some of these Marxists from what was known as the Frankfurt School of Marxism, they came to the United States. And one especially important, Herbert Marcuse, came to Berkeley, and he created an Americanized version, because he saw what's happening with race and civil rights movement and race riots and so on. So he turned it into what later became known as critical race theory. Later it became known, but the idea was hatched at that time, but critical race theory was sort of in the ghettos of the academy, and later it became popular. So now critical race theory basically applies Marxism to the oppressor oppressed, but these are not economic classes. It is whites, blacks. And so now there are various spin-offs from critical race theory which bring a minority religion into as oppressed, which bring in LGBTQ as oppressed and various kinds of oppressed. So all these oppressed have to unify and overthrow the structures of the oppressor. That's what happened. Another variation is more recent, which is enterprising Indians went to Harvard and they have created something called critical caste theory.
Caste theory.
So now they are saying
enterprising Indians.
Very enterprising.
Interesting reference.
very, we think tech entrepreneurs are very enterprising. That's one kind, but these guys are also enterprising. They know how to tap into money and how to plead the case, saying we are also oppressed and we also need all this stuff. And so there is something called the Afro-Dalit Brotherhood. Afro blacks hyphen Dalit, kind of unified. So this new theory says that the Dalits are the blacks of India.
No, but that's a sham narrative. America was always a place for meritocracy. People moved to the land of dreams because of the fact that it was merit that was given priority. These people have gone there, and whoever has gone there by the dint of their hard work and their merit. And that's now being ditched for something like this. That's quite unfortunate.
A famous book has come out of Harvard, which is against IITs. And this is written by Ajanta Subramaniam, a Brahmin herself with a very privileged background, who found a good opportunity as a Harvard professor. And the book is published by Harvard University Press. So it's the most prestigious academic press in the world. And this book basically says that IITs are a structure for transmitting caste privilege from generation to generation to generation, and it is the structurally anti-Dalit. Dalits don't have an equal chance. It is set up like that, and so all these guys who are Silicon Valley CEOs and all that have been marked as casteist and hence racist. So this is the implications of what started at Harvard in this way have gone across industry now.
But why is Harvard jealous of IITs? You use that term. So what's the story behind that?
So IITs have produced more Silicon Valley CEOs than Harvard. Now this was not true 10-15 years ago. And obviously Harvard considering that they are thinking they are the Vishwa Guru, obviously it must tick them off. So this is, it's a shame that the IIT people have not stood up. I am standing up and defending them. I have a whole chapter critiquing that book, which is attacking IITs and giving a rejoinder point by point. But this should have been done by IITs themselves. And one of the things I want to do is during this tour is talk to some IIT people here to see if we can get IITians in India, because the IITians in Silicon Valley have not stood up for their cause.
Why?
I think because maybe they have business opportunities, career opportunities, they want to be politically correct. Maybe Sundar Pichai and Satya Nadella, all these kind of guys, maybe it's not worth it for them to stick their neck out and fight a cause, because they're cushiony, they have a nice job, and I'm just picking on those people, but there are thousands of such people in Silicon Valley of Indian origin, and they're doing well. Why rock the boat? Then they'll be in a controversy. Then who knows? They may be blacklisted. They may be called white supremacists, and maybe it'll be bad for their career. Maybe the corporate board will say you are more of a liability. So it's risky when you have ambition. For me, I don't need a job. I don't want a job. They won't hire me. They cannot hire me if I'm not available to work for anybody, and they cannot fire me. So I have nothing to gain, nothing to lose. I can say whatever the hell I want. But most people are not in that situation. But even I would say there are some ex-IIT retired people in the United States who are filthy rich, and they are able to afford this kind of a thing, that they could now say as a matter of principle, I'm going to fight this, but they're not. They're looking for prestige, they're looking for some recognition, they want to be on this board, they get this award, be non-controversial. I think Indians are afraid to be too controversial. That's kind of a problem I see.
Is being woke the same as being liberal? Can I not be dharmic and yet be liberal? What is wokeism?
So the word liberal is a fantastic word. I'm a liberal. But people who call themselves liberals are not truly liberal. They are very close-minded. In fact, they practice something called cancel culture.
Cancel culture.
So if you disagree with them, they will block you. I have been cancelled at places like Harvard for a long time. So many people are being cancelled because they said something that the so-called liberals cannot tolerate. So being liberal is a certain ideology, and that ideology is like a religious dogma. Liberalism is like a dogma. You have to comply with that. And if you don't comply with that, cancel culture, you're out. So the word, the English language meaning of liberal does not apply to the proper noun uppercase liberals.
Liberal.
It's like if you had a business and you started a shop called Best Gulab Jamuns, then the fact that the name is Best Gulab Jamuns doesn't mean that your Gulab Jamuns are necessarily the best. It may be pretty lousy, but that's your name. So they've just named themselves in a way that is deceptive. Now, wokeism is critical race theory's popular form.
Okay.
Critical race theory is more sort of academic and all that stuff, like Marxism is very academic. Wokeism started with a very genuine and a very good idea. Blacks wanted to wake up. It's to, I have been woken, which means I've been woken to the atrocities, to the slavery, and I won't put up with it, and I'll fight the white supremacists. Very good. I am fully in support of that. In fact, my foundation funded some of these guys. But then the Marxists took over, and what was a black struggle against whites turned into this bigger thing of oppressor oppressed in a more broader sense. And not only white and black, but also minority religion, LGBTQ, caste, Dalits, all kind of the mixed anybody. So there is something called grievance studies. Anyone who says I have an identity and we have a grievance against society, could be for whatever reason.
But how is this being allowed, or who's pushing this? The other aspect is, in the political lexicon now in India, we see this whole thing about Dalit Muslim Ekta. So there's whole grouping of Dalits and Muslims. Although the numbers show that the maximum number of fights which have happened on ground, social atrocities and fights which have happened, is between Dalits and Muslims. And there are more Dalits who have been paid or hurt, killed, etc. by Muslim groups, and vice versa, compared to this entire upper caste versus lower caste narrative. And the other, so let's talk about that, then I'll come to the elitism.
So even in the United States, it's very interesting, when the Black Lives Matter thing happened because of George Floyd being killed, it was very big tragedy, and I supported the Black Lives movement. It was blacks against whites, supremacy, and they wanted to attack the white domination of police and all that. It was extremely good. The Muslims supported this. They got really smart and said, we're going to fund the Black Lives Matter movement, we're going to have alliances. So the Muslims supported blacks very nicely, and the Marxists got in. So it became a kind of a coalition. So that's the rise of the critical race theory, where Muslims are what is called protected class. Blacks were, in critical race theory, protected class means the oppressed who needs a special voice, and you cannot attack him because you're already too oppressed. And you have to silence the oppressor and give voice to the oppressed to create a counter hegemony and topple the structures.
But there is elitism across the board. So if you look at casteism, casta as a word came from the Portuguese.
Yes.
We did not have. We had Varna and Jati in India.
There is no such word in Sanskrit.
In Sanskrit. The other aspect, Rajiv ji, is that elitism is there at every level in society. Yes. So even in Islam, there are more than 72 different firqas, and each one thinks they are better than the other. Right. In Christianity, there are so many different sects and so many different firqas again. Even in the Dalits, there is this entire aspect of creamy layer.
It's human nature.
Upper Dalit, lower Dalit, etc.
It's human nature that as long as there is the ego, if you look at it from a Vedanta point of view, as long as there is an ego, the ego wants to be better than others. It wants to expand, it wants to show off. And so if I can align with others who are similar in some respect, maybe I'll align with all the people who are St. Stephen's graduates, and we can have an identity and we can have some privileges. Or maybe I live in a certain town and we are prestigious, or maybe I have a language or common language or a common religion or whatever. People who have something in common, and they feel that they can get together and get a preference and some advantage over other people. It could be nation state, that all the people of a certain country want to hang together. So when egos are grouped into a collective ego called identity politics, then you're going to have this. So some will be more successful than others, so there'll be a hierarchy. Hierarchy of power, hierarchy of privilege is unavoidable in any society. The communists tried to get rid of it and they failed. Even the Soviet Union had a hierarchy. There were these very privileged people living there. So all they did is they dismantled the meritocracy. They did not dismantle poverty. They dismantled the meritocracy and they failed because they did not have enough meritocracy. So our tradition says, I have to look for my Swadharma.
Correct.
I should not copy your Swadharma. Maybe your Swadharma is you're a great basketball player and you're a great singer. Maybe my Swadharma is I'm good at math.
Yeah.
So I should be good at math and there's nothing wrong with it, and I should respect you for being good in what you are good at.
So I got to balance your Swadharma, but I will continue to continue to hold sway over mine. So
Yes.
somewhere that's what's happening, and this is not then equality. It's then looking at equity, saying that I'll reduce your equity and increase this equity.
Yes.
But at what cost? Cost of merit.
So the difference between equality and equity is important for people to know.
Yeah.
Equality is you give everybody an equal chance. So when the race starts, everybody starts with the same thing, and some will get ahead and win the prize.
Correct.
And not everybody. Equity says that we must have equal outcome.
So they should finish at the same time.
So we should have a certain percentage of people of this race, that race, this particular religion, that religion represented in the Harvard entrance class, because this is representative of society. So we want, it's like quotas. It is sort of like quotas. So what that does is meritocracy is toppled and equity becomes more important. And this is a big fashion in the American corporate life called DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion, and everybody is into this now, and this is being exported to India. So Indian corporates are being required to follow the American system of diversity, equity and inclusion. And American consulting companies and these Deloitte and Ernst & Young and Price Waterhouse and McKinsey and all these guys are making tons of money, giving seminars, workshops, and evaluating the ESG of their corporate clients in India. Environment, E for E, S is society, social justice, and G is the corporate governance. They're looking at, do you have enough Dalits in this and that job? Do you have too many Brahmins? Do you have enough Muslims? So this kind of a business is going on. And so what is happening is that since Indian corporates want foreign investment, and many of the big funds are looking at your ESG rating to see if you are good enough to give you money. So now what will happen is those who comply with the American idea of social justice will get more funding than those who don't. So, but this has nothing to do with India's idea of social justice. We have a different idea of social justice.
The policy is not thought from the India point of view, it's the West American point of view which is being imposed on us.
Yes.
Is that the reason why you believe that it is harmful to our civilization? Because India, Bharat, if you were to see, has always been open to ideas. We've always been a confluence of ideas. There have been many streams, different, all of them arguing with each other, but eventually coming to a consensus, and there is a place for everyone. Why would you say that this thought process, even though it's entering our system, is breaking India?
So this is very important. You know, there is a harmony of flowers and plants and all that, diversity. But a weed is something that won't tolerate diversity, it will spread to kill others. Weed. A cancer is not a healthy cell because the body has many kinds of cells.
Yes.
But they are all in an equilibrium with each other. This is one kind of cell and it's happy, the neighboring cell is another kind of cell. Cancer is the expansionist cell. Cancer says that I'll make you like me, metastasize, turn you into another cancer cell like me, and I'll keep expanding until I've taken over the whole body. Of course, the irony is that after taking over the whole body is dead, even the cancer is dead. The cancer kills itself. It's self-defeating in a sense. But this is sort of like a cancer. This idea that of spreading in an imperialistic way. The Western universalism term I've coined long back. Western universalism, which is the spread of Western ideology based on Western history and Western philosophy, is actually like a weed spreading because it's not tolerant and not respectful of the other side. And if it were another idea along with many, and there's no cancel culture anywhere, and this is Marxism is an idea, the religion is an idea, I'm all for it because it will enrich us. We will learn from it, but it should be bi-directional. It should not be power. It should not be that they have more money and they have more brand and they have a danda and they can put sanctions on us and they can deny us with investments because we are not complying with their criteria. It shouldn't be like that. If it were a level playing field and they just brought in good ideas, strong ideas, I would want to learn from them.
Well, this book also says that wokeism is entering our courts. And there's much more in these 22 chapters. But we've run out of time, Rajivji. So on that note, we're going to hit pause with the promise that you will give us time again and we'll take this conversation forward.
Fantastic. We'll do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Folks, I'm getting a lot of flack for my new website, which I got a lot of traction for suddenly this week. I don't understand why. It's called PFI, and it's Please Follow India. I'm just trying to promote the country. I don't know why people are getting upset. Call the week that wasn't. Did you hear this news, folks? Did you hear about Goswami? He retired. Gone. Just like that. Gone. Poof. Sorry, it's not that Goswami. This is Jhulan Goswami, the fast bowler. After 22 years of service for India. I think the other one is still 12 years. Long way to go. Guys, new contest just in. Pay attention. Answer the question correctly and you get a free ticket to Beijing. The question is, where the hell is Xi Jinping? I think the family is inquiring. I don't know more. I don't know more. Maybe he's there, maybe he's not. In fact, China is such a secretive society that even if the top guy is missing, no one knows it. And you dare ask who or why, because that's also not allowed. It's very tough to find anyone. Of course, if Xi Jinping is really missing, or is it just a case of Chinese whispers? That's not right. I'm not going to endorse this kind of rubbish. Okay, this is nonsense. I'm not going to be part of this. Mohit Mahale, please tell Gopal not to behave like this. Now, Chinese whispers in India, folks. Heard about the nominees for the presidency of the Congress party? Do you know who is standing? Apparently everybody. Yeah, that's right. All passport photos taken in 1973. In fact, I won't be surprised if BJP pulls a fast one and puts one of their own slyly in the race. Actually, Amarinder ka kya ho gaya? No one is sure. Which party is Amarinder in anymore? I mean, does anyone know? All right. After Xi Jinping, find Amarinder. Last week, 3 petrol bombs were thrown at an RSS member's house. The actual plan was 4 petrol bombs, but because of the petrol prices, they had to take a call. Okay, business is business. Did you see this iconic photograph? Both of them, Nadal, Federer, cried at Federer's final match in the Rod Laver Cup. Of course, they cried for different reasons. Federer because he was retiring after so long, and Nadal because Federer told him he had changed his mind. Just when Nadal was so happy, ek to gaya, abhi Djokovic ko nikalega, thanks to pandemic. Video of the week, folks. Take a look at this. Women beating a man in Raipur. Take a look.